Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you our second game of the week. And for the second week in a row, it takes us out to Stillwater, Oklahoma. This time, as Texas takes on the 6th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. And this is a huge Big 12 showdown, guys. Mostly, though, for Oklahoma State. The Cowboys, of course, being the Big 12's only undefeated team. Undefeated overall, undefeated in conference play. They're the highest-ranked Big 12 team, and they are absolutely the Big 12's best chance of getting a team into the college football playoff. Texas, they're sitting at 2-2 in conference play. Obviously, a very disappointing season for them. This was a year some had them pegged to make the playoff, some had them pegged to finally break through and win the Big 12, and just like that, they lose to TCU, they lose to Oklahoma, and a loss here absolutely ensures that their Big 12 title hopes are over. Right now, they're just holding on to that little bit of hope. A win here would keep those hopes alive, a loss, and they're done. And Tom Herman might be out of a job very soon. But we're here to break down this matchup, though, guys. One that has been a classic within the Big 12 over these past few seasons. So we're going to break down the offense, the defense, the keys to the game, and of course at the end, who we have winning this game out in Stillwater. So again, we mentioned that the series lately has been a classic just across the conference as a whole. Texas has dominated the series in Stillwater in recent years, winning 5 of the past 7 at Oklahoma State. The last 3 games, though, between Texas and Oklahoma State have been decided by 1 possession. Texas defeating the Cowboys by 6 last year. Oklahoma State winning the 2 prior to that by 3 points. So again, last 3 games decided by really less than a full touchdown. And right now, Texas is favored by the FPI to win this game. 51.4% chance to win, according to the FBI, for the Longhorns. Again, basically, that's a toss-up game. Out in Vegas, the spread for this game is Oklahoma State. Currently, as of this filming, Oklahoma State favored by 3.5 points. Of course, that line brought to you by BetNow.eu, our place where we go to go place our bets. By far, to me, the best site out there. We've enjoyed going out there and working with them. And if you want to join their site, which I highly recommend, use our promo code GRIDIRON down there, down the description below. Just click on that link, and you get that 100% sign-up bonus. You get that $1,000 cash sign-up bonus. It's not a joke. If you don't believe me, just click on the link and check it out for yourself. So go over there and sign up using BetNow. And over on BetNow, while you're at it, use our expert picks. For just $30 over on our website, you get all of our college football spread picks for a full 365 days, a full year, guys. And you can use those over there. Some of the best spread picks and analysis in the country. Just look at the numbers. So again, Texas favored computer-wise by the FPI. Oklahoma State favored odds-maker-wise out in Vegas. Let's take a look at the offenses for both teams here. And again, we usually start with the road team. So we're going to start with the Longhorns here. From Austin, out there in Texas. If you know anything about college football, if you know anything about Big 12, if you know anything about Texas, you know that the Longhorns revolve around Sam Ehlinger. Right now, he is Texas. He is Texas, and he is this Texas offense. Without Sam Ehlinger, they would have nothing. Ehlinger, 1,481 passing yards so far this season. 17 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. He's also added 293 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. He's leading a team that's averaging 45 points per game, a team that's averaging 482 yards per game, and that's so impressive. The sad thing is that it's Ehlinger doing practically all of it. You know, I really think if Texas had a little bit more talent, if Texas had some playmakers that could help him out, not fumble the ball at the goal line, could actually catch his passes, could actually block for him, this Texas team would actually be pretty dang good. So Sam Ehlinger is having to do everything by himself, and the stats show that. The stats are amazing so far this season. He's certainly not getting enough attention because he's on a Texas team that just hasn't been able to win the big games, and it's on a Texas team that is struggling right now. Outside of Ehlinger, obviously the key playmaker and the difference maker for basically every game that Texas plays, you have Keontae Ingram. The running back. 245 yards this season. He was a big-time returning starter coming into 2020, and he's really been disappointing. Has struggled with ball security. He was the one that coughed up the ball on the goal line against TCU, that 2-point loss for Texas against the Horned Frogs. 245 yards, but 0 touchdowns. 0 touchdowns for Keontae Ingram this year. And that's not good, guys. That's not good. Again, once again, that to me shows the lack of production that Texas has outside of Ehlinger on the offensive side of the ball. The numbers are great for him. The numbers cumulative, the 45 points per game, the almost 500 yards per game are very, very impressive. But without Ehlinger, they would be nowhere near that. Oklahoma State, the biggest storyline for them, their star quarterback has returned, Spencer Sanders. And we saw him back in action last weekend against Iowa State. Remember, that was our second game of the week. It was a top 20 showdown. The Cowboys defeated the Cyclones 24-21 behind 306 total yards and 2 total touchdowns from Spencer Sanders. He looked great. Outside of the 2 interceptions, something that he, of course, will have to work on, but outside of the turnovers, had 71 rushing yards, had a rushing touchdown, looked poised in the pocket, was making some big-time throws, a handful to the big-time wide receiver in Tylan Wallace. So Spencer Sanders being back gives this offense a huge, huge boost because, Shane Illingworth wasn't bad, but he was not going to be the guy that was going to lead Oklahoma State to win the Big 12. Was not going to be the guy to maybe get Oklahoma State to the playoff. It wasn't going to happen. They needed Spencer Sanders, and he came back in a big way. He delivered in a big way, and they're hoping he can do the same against Texas on Saturday. This Oklahoma State offense isn't nearly as flashy as Texas, isn't as fast-paced as Texas, but the thing to me is you don't have to be. The Oklahoma State offense, while they don't have that speed and electricity, even though they have a lot of talent to do so, they're efficient. They're averaging 28.5 points per game. Not a whole lot compared to Texas, maybe compared to Oklahoma, maybe some other teams within the Big 12. But they're very efficient, and they're very balanced. 203.8 passing yards per game, and they average more rushing yards per game, 216.3 rushing yards per game. It's not very often you see more teams average more rushing yards than passing yards, unless you're one of those military academies like Army, Navy, Air Force, and the likes like that. We all know that the Cowboys are led by their star running back in Chuba Hubbard. 478 yards and 5 touchdowns this season, has rushed for 100 yards or more in his last 3 games. Did not do so against Tulsa, but ever since then, he has rushed for at least 100 yards in every single game. This Oklahoma State offense, again, they might not score within 30 seconds, may not score in a minute and a half, but they're efficient. They're going to wear your defense down as they march down the field and eventually get some sort of points out of it. And that's going to be a problem for Texas's offense. Texas defense. When you look at the defenses this year, guys, from Texas and Oklahoma State, there's a big difference there. There's a big difference. And to me, the defense is what's going to be the difference maker in this game. Remember, we said Oklahoma State wears you down. Texas's defense is already worn down. They're horrible. They're allowing 32.2 points per game. They're allowing 253 passing yards per game. So you might expect another big game out of Spencer Sanders on Saturday afternoon. Put that in comparison to Oklahoma State, a team that's allowing just 12 points per game, and a team that's allowing 176 passing yards per game. Sam Ehlinger in Texas, they're averaging well over 300 passing yards per game. Now, there's a big difference there. So what's going to give? Is Ehlinger going to have his way? Is he going to continue to put up big numbers? That's the only way Texas can move the ball. Or is the Oklahoma State defense going to shut them down? And many will point to these numbers and say, well, Oklahoma State hasn't had that great of competition. They played Tulsa, West Virginia, Kansas. Iowa State was absolutely their most difficult test of the season so far. You could put Texas up there as a difficult test for them. And from here on out, the tests are only going to get more difficult for Oklahoma State. You got Texas now. You've got Kansas State next week. You got Oklahoma after that. Things are about to start getting tough for the Cowboys, and we're really about to start to see what this team is made of. We already saw that last week against Iowa State. The question is, can they continue to do it? The rushing defense for both of these teams is relatively similar, only about 3 yards difference in the rushing defense. But you look at Oklahoma State, they cracked over 100 yards averaging that they're allowing per week after Breece Hall torched them for 185 yards in last week's victory. So last week, Oklahoma State was allowing less than 100 yards per game rushing. Now they're about 127. I still side with the Cowboys when it comes to the rushing defense. I side with the Cowboys 100% when it comes to defense as a whole. Certainly owning that edge over Texas. A team, they allowed over 50 points to Oklahoma. They allowed over 50 points to Texas Tech. They allowed just 16 points to Baylor last week, but this is still a Baylor team that is going through some growing pains under a new head coach in Dave Aranda. So, again, and even in a game like that, Texas only won by 11. That's not necessarily encouraging. No disrespect to Baylor. They're a very, very good team, in my opinion. Still one of the better upper half teams in the Big 12 this season. But they still have a lot to work out. And Texas was unable to take advantage of that in Austin. The final point I want to make on each defense here is we look at the normal stats here. I want to look at the pressure. I want to look at the pressure the front seven is generating for both Texas and Oklahoma State. The Cowboys have 15 sacks this season, 15 sacks through 4 games. The Longhorns have just 7 through 5 games. Obviously, there's a huge difference there. So I've been very impressed with this Oklahoma State pass rush, their ability to rush the quarterback, their ability to create negative plays. And that's something that's going to be key here. Texas wants to move the ball down the field as quickly as possible. Can they get tackles for loss on Ehlinger when he tries to run? Can they sack Ehlinger and force some second or third and longs? And can they force turnovers off of Ehlinger? The Cowboys forcing 1 turnover per game. Literally, they've had 1 turnover in each game this season for a grand total of 4 on the year. Texas doing a little bit better in the turnover department, forcing 8 so far this season, although 3 of them came against Oklahoma. So that's going to be the key. Who can generate a little bit more pressure? Who maybe can win that turnover battle between 2 offenses that I think if you win that turnover battle will make the other team pay for it. They will create points off of turnovers. Right now, to me, the edge still goes to Oklahoma State. So what are some keys here? We have praised the Cowboys. They're efficient on offense. They're balanced on offense. Their defense, the best in the Big 12. Many are saying it's the best that Mike Gundy has ever had. What does Texas have to do to exploit some weaknesses within the Cowboys and go on the road and get a win for their 6th win in Stillwater in the past 8 meetings? Texas has to find someone to help Sam Ehlinger. That sounds so obvious and so cliche, but it is true. You cannot win a game by yourself. It is so difficult to do that. And I know people are going to say, Sam Ehlinger isn't by himself. He has some wide receivers that have made some plays. Keontae Ingram has taken the load off of him a little bit. Come on, guys. They haven't. Ehlinger is the leading rusher. He's obviously the leading passer. And the receivers are nothing like they've been in recent years. Ehlinger is having to do everything and hope that the other teammates, his defense, his offensive line, his wide receivers, his running backs that are coughing the ball up, got to hope they do their job because he's doing his. So Ehlinger has to find someone to help him out. Texas has to find someone to help him out. And to me, the best bet for that is Keontae Ingram. They've got to get him involved. Maybe Ingram can generate a little bit of a decent rushing attack. Again, Breece Hall, great rushing game for Iowa State last week against the Cowboys. I think 185 yards. You keep running it with Sam Ehlinger. You run some RPO. Is Ehlinger going to keep it? Is he going to give it to Ingram? Is he going to keep it and throw it to Ingram? You've got to get creative with that, even if it's something super simple, something that's going to keep this Oklahoma State defense on their toes. That is what Texas has to do. They cannot solely rely on Sam Ehlinger for the full 60 minutes. Oklahoma State, it may sound cliche as well, but listen to this stat. They need to stay balanced. Remember, they're averaging, 203 passing yards per game, about 216 rushing yards per game. Great quarterback in Sanders, dual threat quarterback. Chuba Hubbard, Tylan Wallace. The offensive talent is there, and the defense is playing extremely well. In Texas's 2 losses this year, to TCU and to Oklahoma, the Longhorns have allowed over 200 passing yards per game and over 200 rushing yards per game. Oklahoma State is not only averaging that on the season, but they also had that against Iowa State. The Cowboys had over 200 passing yards per game. They had over 200 rushing yards per game. They also had that against Kansas. I didn't even throw that one out there because I thought that was obvious. But in their past 2 games, the Cowboys have had over 200 passing yards per game, over 200 rushing yards per game. And the 2 times Texas has lost, their defense has allowed that much to their opponents. So you've got to make sure you get those marks. You stay balanced. You keep Texas, their defense, on their toes. Stay unpredictable. Oklahoma State will win this game, especially if Spencer Sanders can crank out a little bit more mobility. 71 rushing yards last week against Iowa State. If he matches that or does better than that, Texas won't have an answer, and Oklahoma State will win this game. So what's going to happen in Stillwater? What is going to happen in Stillwater Saturday afternoon? Again, huge game for both teams. Texas needs this just to keep Big 12 title hopes alive. A loss here for Oklahoma State doesn't ruin their Big 12 title hopes, but it could ruin their college football playoff hopes. Something that obviously they want really bad, and something that the Big 12 Conference wants really bad too. They want to get back in the playoff because Oklahoma hasn't been doing anything for them the last few years. We know this has been a classic matchup in recent years. Again, Texas plays very well against Oklahoma State. They've played very well against Oklahoma State in Stillwater. I would expect nothing less on Saturday. I would expect nothing less than maybe another one-possession game on Saturday, making it the 4th game in a row between these two that's been decided by, I guess, 8 points or less, even though the closest or the largest margin of victory the last 3 years has been just 6. But in a game like this, after everything we've talked about, I believe it will be the Oklahoma State defense that makes the biggest difference here. The Oklahoma State defense, I really do think, is legit. I think they're the real deal. I get maybe they haven't played the most elite opponents yet, but they did a good job of stopping Iowa State last week, especially through the air with Brock Purdy. Sam Ehlinger and Texas rely on their passing game. If Oklahoma State does what they did last week, they will walk away with the win. And again, that efficient Oklahoma State offense, maybe not as fast-moving as Texas, maybe not as high-scoring as Texas, they're efficient enough to wear that Texas defense down, march the ball down the field, and get some points every single time. Oklahoma State wins this game. I don't think it is by more than 10 points, but the Cowboys do win this game at home. They remain undefeated. They remain a top 10 team. They remain the Big 12's best chance to go to the college football playoff, but tougher tests are still ahead. We are beginning to see that this Cowboy squad is legit. It's just a matter of can they keep this up over the remainder of the season. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below. If you love college football, and I would imagine you do because you're here on our channel, make sure to check out everything down in that description. We have that BetNow offer, betnow.eu. Get the 100% sign-up bonus and then $1,000 cash bonus only on BetNow using our promo code GRIDIRON. Promise you will not regret that. Use our expert picks over on BetNow. Expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Sign up for our Patreon account for more content that you will not receive anywhere else. Again, it is the best place to get your college football coverage. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your college football Saturday. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.